Hi, it's Angie here at Crafts at Home. Today we'll be making this multi-strand beaded cuff. You can use it in all types of beads, but today I'm going to be using seed beads and Tibetan spacers. Here's what you're going to need. Your memory wire. Now this is the bangle size. You can also get the smaller ring or the larger necklace, but it's this medium bangle wire we're going to be using. Any beads of your choice, seed beads, pearls, anything as long as you know they will fit onto that wire. Some of them, the holes are too small or the wire's too big. Just need to check before you plan ahead. You need 2 eye pins or head pins depending on the finish that you want in. I'm going to also use 8 little beads for the ends, as I know that the seed beads won't go over. And you also need some spacers. You'll need your side cutters, your memory wire cutters or strong cutters for cutting your memory wire because you do not use your side cutters, your round nose pliers and your chain nose pliers or bent nose pliers, whichever's most comfiest for you. You might want to review the basic techniques videos, and you need to do closed loops and the pliers video, which will relate to this. So to start with, we're going to cut the length of memory wire that we want. I tend to use odd numbers as I find it looks a lot better on the wrist and you can alternate your colours easier. You can do anywhere from 3 colours or 3 strands up to 7, 9, depends on how many you want. It also looks good with 7 as a rainbow. To cut your wire, you want to find your end. Now these will tangle quite easily, but don't worry, because as you cut it off, it will naturally untangle. It looks a little bit like a slinky. So to start with, you just let your wire fall. Don't pull it around, don't try and open it up. Just keep your finger on the end and let it fall naturally. For all of my cuffs, I tend to use 1 1/4 turns. So you can see where my thumb is here, it's 1/4, but the next one down. So that's where I'm going to cut. Always use your strong wire cutters and not your jewellery side cutters for cutting your wires. I'm just going to double check that it matches. Yep. So what you want to do to start with is create a closed loop at one end of each bangle. I'm going to do quite small ones as the alternating beads at the end are quite small. And you just turn it as you would a normal closed loop. It is quite strong, so you'll have to use a bit of brute force to do it, especially when turning the smaller loops. Doesn't matter if it's not a perfect loop, because they're hidden in between the pearls anyway. So you just really tighten that over. Next, I'm going to thread the first amount of beads onto what will be the middle piece. And you literally just thread them on one at a time. It can be quite tricky using seed beads as they are so small. You might want to try pearls or Tibetan beads as a starter, or even bugle beads, because they're about 3 times as longer as a seed bead is, so you'll find that you fill up your gaps quite a bit quicker. You also might have a look at the spacing on your if you're using spaces on those, that will also tend to determine what size beads you're going to look at for filling up your spaces, because if you use very thick beads but you only have little gaps like this on your spaces, it will look and push everything out a little bit as you go through a spacer. I want to take a guess there. So you push them all down to the end and just have a look. I've got 5 spaces here, so I'm wanting 6 different segments. So to me that's looking about right. I'll put a couple more on. If you want it to be really exact, you could cut an extra piece of wire that's the circumference of what you want your sections to be. So you could cut it just that length, so you can make sure that all of your lengths are exactly the same. I tend to do it a little bit more by eye. You get used to it the more you do. So I've just threaded that onto the middle hole of the spacer, and I'm going to carry on with the rest of this bangle, and I'll see you back here as soon as this section's done. Welcome back. So I'm just finishing this off. As you can see, I've gone round and filled up between the spacers seed beads. So look, I've gone about 1/8 of the way round extra, and I've ended up with the 4 spacers in. I was planning on 5, but I just didn't need it in the end. So I've got 5 sections of beads and the 4 spacers, and they all look pretty even, which you can do that, or you can just make it a bit random, make some sections smaller than others. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to tidy these away. And then at this point you want to cut off any excess that you don't want to use. So I'm leaving about 1 centimetre there to turn over. I've just lost a couple of beads off there, so I'll just pop them back on. Have to be careful when cutting, because sometimes you do need 2 hands to be able to cut the wire. But if you've got something on the end like the seed beads, you run the risk of them flying all over the place. Right, and then at the end you just want to turn over, put a couple of extra on there, you just want to turn over another closed loop. As I did with the other end, you want to make it quite small, just so it's hidden in between the beads at the ends. And there's your first one. Now you want to do the same with the others. If you want to do them alternative colours, I'm going to do one that's silver, red, silver, red, silver, and do the same on either side and use that as the middle, just so it creates a little bit of diversity. So to start with, you've got the silver beads that you want. I find it's easier if you put them on the mat, spread them out and pick up a couple at a time, and you just roll them between your fingers to get the ends open. It's a bit harder with the silver ones, as it's not that easy to see where the centres are. So instead of just guessing, keep the one you've just done close to you and keep checking, putting it side by side to check the amount of beads that you've done, because this is where it will start to make a difference. You don't want to put too many or too few, because the spacer bars won't line up or you'll end up with gaps. As you can see, still got quite a bit to go on that one. And then you just keep on checking. If you find that you get too many or you've got too few, when you get to finishing your bracelet, you'll find that you'll either have gaps, or if you've got too many, the whole thing twists around on itself and it just doesn't lie flat. You want to make sure instead of doing it to the side, you want to do it on top, because that's how the beads will lie. Could add one more largish bead in there. You'll find with these cheaper beads, they're not all exactly the same size. You'll get some that are a bit narrower, some that are a bit thicker. And while it adds to the ergonomics and the view of it, it makes something like this quite difficult, because you've got to make sure that everything is spot on, especially for this bracelet. If you went with the more expensive seed beads, then you can pretty much guarantee they are all going to be the right size. So when making something like this, you could do it with, say, 20 beads in between each section, and you know when you load 20 beads, it's going to be the same width. Right, that's the same there. So the next step is actually to thread the end through one side of the spacer. This is where it can start to get a little bit tricky. And you take it up to that section there, and you start on the next one. You do exactly the same, so you keep on making sure you have exactly the same number of beads. Then you thread that one through, you work on the next section. So I'm going to do a red section for this next one. So I want my red beads. I'm going to carry on, and I'll see you back when I've got this section finished. Welcome back. As you can see, I'm nearly done with this second strand now, just putting the last few on, and then it'll just be a case of repeating the finish that we did on the other one, with the cut off the excess, turn the loop, and then we'll be done. You see, I keep making sure that everything is on top of itself when it's laid down, so I can make sure that everything lines up to get the right number of beads on, and I guessed right on this side. So just one final check, push that one down out the way, Yep. So then you just push everything so it's right down at the bottom. Cut any excess off. We only want little loops at the end, remember, for these beads. I'm trying to do it without flinging the ends off this time. There we go. And then just curl the end over. There we go. As you can see, when we even it up, everything matches nicely. I'm going to carry on, do this last one, and I'll meet you at the end. Welcome back. As you can see, I've now completed the rest of that final loop. So they line up perfectly and they look really symmetrical. Now I'm just going to show you how to finish the ends off. You could keep them like this. You could just simply put a little jump ring through. You could finish it like I have here. So you've got the beads either side of each of the ones. But I'm going to do something a little bit different here now. I'm just going to take my head pin, put one bead on. Now where normally to finish off the ends I'd pass it through one and then put a bead in the middle. You could do that so you have just one bead at each end and put them all together. Looking at it now, I think I am going to put a separator bead in between each length. So you pass it through the first one, you've got to make sure that they're in the right order. Put the bead on, take back and make sure you put it through the second one, put the bead on, and then you pass through the last one and put the final bead on. At this stage, take your round nose pliers and turn a 90-degree angle so you can do a closed loop at the end. Just do it quickly here. I'm going to do a very small one as I don't need to attach anything onto it. You could, if you want, put a little bead on another head pin with another closed loop and attach that on. But for this purpose, I'm just going to leave it as a closed loop on the end. Now I'm going to do the same the other end. I'm going to make sure that the head pin and the closed loop are on the same sides. So bead first, through the first, second bead, through the second, third bead, through the last, and the last bead, and then again just pull it nice and tight, make sure they're right down. 90-degree angle, as you do every time for a nice closed loop. And then tidy up with your chain nose pliers. And there we go. Nice simple multi-beaded cuff bracelet. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial and found it useful, then please click like. Check out the related videos on screen, or to see my others or be notified of the latest uploads, please subscribe to the channel by clicking on the link. Any questions or suggestions for further videos, then please use the comment section. Bye for now.